His couple of shots, the direction, I tried to learn also how he moves a little bit, so, but again, he played very, very well in the third set, and I came back after the first break.
Friday night in Rome, Jannik Sinner is vomiting on the Campo Centrale clay. His legs are gone. He is shaking between points. Medvedev is circling. The whole tennis world is watching a #1 seed fall apart in real time. He still won. Came back the next morning, closed out Medvedev in 15 minutes, 33 consecutive Masters victories, an Open-era record that stood alone the moment it was set. And that right there is what proves it. Not the winning streak, not the records. The fact that he was vomiting on a Friday and winning on a Saturday. That is the moment Rafael Nadal finally admits costs him something to say out loud, that Sinner is not operating at a high level. He is operating on a different level. A level where the body breaking down is not a crisis. It is just background noise. Nadal spent 20 years building a reputation for playing through pain that nobody else could survive. He finally admits, through every record Sinner is pulling out of his hands, that someone has arrived who does not need a healthy body to be dangerous. Ruud said it before today's final. At the end of the day, he's human. I have to try to think that way as much as I can. Even the man across the net has stopped believing it.
Because I think we give much more than what we are getting back.
Hit subscribe. This is where the real conversation lives. Because what happened in Rome this week was not a tennis story. It was a takeover. Think about what that sentence actually means coming from Casper Ruud. This is not some journeyman trying to manage expectations before a big match. This is a former world #2. A two-time Roland Garros finalist, a player who has beaten some of the best names in the sport on clay over the last 5 years. And he is standing in front of the media the night before a Masters 1000 final, actively coaching himself into believing his opponent is mortal. That is not a pre-match ritual, that is a confession, and Ruud is not alone in it. Daniil Medvedev, a former world #1, a US Open champion, a man who has beaten Sinner before and knows exactly how to take him apart mentally, spent 2 full sets in that semifinal doing everything right. He changed tactics, he extended rallies, he forced Sinner into defensive exchanges that should have been impossible to sustain given what Sinner's body was doing at the time. Medvedev took the second set. He had momentum. He had a broken opponent in front of him. It still was not enough. That is the part that should disturb everyone watching this sport right now. Because the argument for years has been that Sinner is elite but beatable. That on a bad day, against the right opponent, with the conditions turning against him, someone could knock him off. Medvedev was the right opponent. The conditions did turn against Sinner. His body gave him a bad day on a Friday night in front of 10,500 people in Rome. Every variable lined up in Medvedev's favor. Sinner still took it 6-2, 5-7, 6-4. Now here is where Nadal enters this conversation in a way that is not just a headline. Rafael Nadal spent the better part of 2 decades building a reputation on clay that nobody in this sport has come close to matching. 14 French Open titles, absolute ownership of every clay surface he touched during his peak years. And built into that reputation was something specific. The idea that Nadal could play through physical suffering in a way that separated him from every other player alive. Knee problems that would have ended other careers. Back issues that flared mid-match. Heat exhaustion at Roland Garros that had his team watching from the box with genuine concern. Nadal absorbed all of it and kept competing at a level that made it look almost supernatural. That quality, the ability to perform while the body is staging a revolt, was considered uniquely his. Sinner just put it on display in Rome against one of the top 10 players in the world. And the fact that Nadal himself, in the months since retiring in late 2024, has been conspicuously measured every time Sinner's name comes up in conversation tells you something. When reporters have pushed him on direct comparisons, Nadal has not dismissed Sinner. He has not downplayed what is happening. He has chosen his words carefully, acknowledged the dominance, and stepped back. For a man who competed at the highest level for over 2 decades and understood better than anyone what sustained greatness actually costs, that careful acknowledgement from Nadal is the closest thing to an admission you are going to get from someone with his pride and his legacy on the line. He finally admits it not because he wants to, because the evidence has grown too large to push back against with a straight face. The record that Sinner broke in Rome this week is the clearest illustration of that. Novak Djokovic's streak of 31 consecutive Masters 1,000 victories was set during his 2011 season, widely considered one of the greatest single seasons any player has ever produced in the history of professional tennis. Djokovic won 70 matches that year and lost only 6. He won 3 Grand Slams. He was, by every measurable standard, playing the best tennis the sport had ever seen from a male player in a calendar year. And the 31-match winning streak at Masters level was a byproduct of that. A number that sat in the record books for 15 years, completely untouched. Sinner walked into Rome having already broken it. He extended it to 33 by beating Medvedev. He did it while vomiting on court. The number now belongs entirely to him, and the circumstances under which he claimed it make Djokovic's version look not lesser because it was genuinely historic, but suddenly reachable in a way it never felt before. Nadal's best Masters streak was 23 consecutive wins. Sinner passed that in Madrid 3 weeks ago. When reporters pointed it out in his press conference, Sinner's response was immediate and completely genuine. He said he could not compare himself to Nadal, Federer, or Djokovic because what they accomplished across their careers was on a different level entirely. He meant it as humility. He said the words "different level" about those 3 men. The headline took that phrase and aimed it back at him, because the scoreboard this week in Rome makes the argument better than any quote ever could. A 24-year-old who calls the legends of his sport unreachable is currently standing in territory that only those legends ever occupied, and in some cases, territory they never reached at all. Nadal never completed the career Golden Masters. He won Monte Carlo, Madrid, Rome, Canada, Cincinnati, and Roland Garros at Masters level across his career, but never captured every single one of the 9 events. Djokovic completed it. Djokovic remains the only man in history to hold all 9 titles simultaneously. And as of this Sunday's final in Rome, Sinner is 1 match away from joining him. 1 win against Ruud, a player who has never taken a single set off him in 4 meetings. And Sinner writes his name onto the shortest list in tennis history. The career Golden Masters is the sport's most exclusive achievement at this level. It requires not just talent and form, but sustained excellence across radically different conditions. Indian Wells is played in dry desert heat on fast outdoor hard courts. Miami is humid and the balls sit heavy. Monte Carlo is slow clay on the coast where the bounce stays low. Madrid is at altitude where the ball flies through the air faster than anywhere else on the clay swing. Rome is the most physical of all of them. The conditions are oppressive, the surface is slower than anywhere except possibly Roland Garros itself, and the schedule demands that players who go deep in all 5 tournaments arrive there running on fumes. Sinner arrived in Rome having won 4 of those 5 events already this season. He came in carrying more mileage than almost any other player in the draw. He played through physical collapse in the semifinal, and he still made the final without dropping a set in the first 4 matches of the tournament before the Medvedev semifinal. That is the thing that proves this is not a hot streak. Hot streaks end when the conditions get hard enough. What Sinner is producing right now does not behave like a streak. It behaves like a standard. Ruud made a point before the final that deserves more attention than it got. He said he knows he probably cannot break major records in this sport. He said it plainly, without self-pity, in a way that suggested genuine self-awareness about where he sits in the current hierarchy. He is ranked 25th in the world coming into this tournament. He beat 4 top 20 opponents to reach the final. He dismantled Luciano Darderi 6-1, 6-1 in the semifinal without breaking a sweat. He is playing some of the best tennis of his career right now. Against anyone else in the draw this week, Ruud would be the story. He would be the player everyone was talking about. He is facing Sinner in the final, and the conversation is almost entirely about whether Sinner's body holds up long enough to complete the job. That framing alone tells you everything about where this sport is right now. The question is not whether Sinner will win. The question is whether a physically compromised Sinner can win. And even that question feels slightly absurd given that a physically compromised Sinner just beat Medvedev across 2 days with a 33-match master streak on the line. The last Italian man to win in Rome was Adriano Panatta in 1976, 50 years. The tournament has come and gone across 5 decades without a home champion in the men's draw. Italian tennis has produced world-class players in that time. Carreccia-era players, Berrettini, Musetti, but nobody closed it out on home soil. Sinner has a chance to end that today. The weight of that is not small. Playing at home in front of a crowd that is entirely behind you sounds like an advantage until you feel the expectation sitting on your chest in the third set of a match that matters. Sinner felt it against Medvedev. The crowd carried him through moments where his body had genuinely quit. He admitted in his post-match press conference that he struggled to sleep the night the match was suspended. He said the situation of needing to finish a match the next day after sleeping on it was something he had never experienced before. He called the whole week very tough. And then he showed up to the final press conference the next morning looking completely calm. That composure is not performance. Sinner has never been the kind of player who manufactures an image. What you see from him off the court is what he actually is. Someone whose internal temperature barely registers on the outside, regardless of what is happening around him. It is the quality that makes him so difficult to break mentally. Medvedev tried. Medvedev threw everything at him, including a legitimate second-set comeback and the full psychological weight of watching his opponent physically deteriorate in real time. Sinner absorbed it, came back the next day, and held to love in the first game. Andy Roddick, speaking recently about whether Sinner should be considered as dominant at Roland Garros as Nadal used to be, said something that stuck. He called Sinner the overwhelming favorite heading into Paris, but drew a line between one dominant season and the kind of sustained certainty that Nadal built over 20 years on clay. He is technically correct. One season, even a season this extraordinary, is not a legacy. It is a beginning. But Roddick also said this about Sinner's game specifically. He's not just an algorithm, he's like AI. He meant it as a compliment about consistency and processing speed under pressure. What he captured, maybe without fully intending to, is the specific quality that makes Sinner so unsettling to play against right now. He does not have bad patches within matches the way most players do. He does not gift games. He does not tighten up at 5-4 in a deciding set and suddenly start missing forehands that were going in an hour ago. When Sinner is physically healthy, he is metronomic. When Sinner is physically broken, as he demonstrably was on Friday night in Rome, he becomes slightly less metronomic and still beats the 8th best player in the world over 3 sets across 2 days. That is what different level actually means. Not better stats, not a higher ranking, not more titles. Though all of those things are true, it means that the floor of his performance on his worst day still clears the ceiling of what most opponents can sustain on their best. Nadal had that quality for years on clay specifically. For a brief, brutal window during his 2011 season, Djokovic had it across every surface. Federer had it at Wimbledon for half a decade in a way that made the rest of the draw feel like they were competing for second place before the tournament began. Sinner has it right now, today, in Rome. At 24 years old, with a career Golden Masters 1 match away and a body that just went through something that should have ended his week on a Friday night. Nadal finally admits it, not in words, because Nadal is too proud and too careful for that, but in every record that no longer carries only his name, in every milestone that used to say Nadal alone and now has a second line underneath it. That second line says Sinner, and it is getting longer every single week. Subscribe if you want to be here when it happens, because this is not the end of the story. It is the part right before everything accelerates.